Welcome to Rewiring Health. If you're a high-achieving woman feeling trapped in the endless cycle of guilt and exhaustion from always putting others first, then this is your sanctuary. I'm Dr. Kelly Kessler, your dedicated empowerment mentor, and I'm here to tell you that it's time to reclaim your peace, health, and happiness. Imagine waking up every day feeling energized and unapologetically living for yourself. Together, we'll break down the walls that have been holding you back and unlock the vibrant, unstoppable force that you truly are. It's time to put yourself first, embrace your authentic self, and live a life that's not just endured, but celebrated. Now let's dive in. Have you ever noticed your skin reflects your stress? I used to struggle with mine, dry, dull, reactive, until I started pairing nervous system regulation with products that actually honor your body. That's why I love Milk and Butterflies. They handcraft every formula with 100% organic ingredients and powerful aromatherapy oils. They aren't just products for your skin, they're rituals that restore hydration, resilience, and calm even in the busiest seasons of our life. You can try them for yourself and feel the difference. Head to Milk and Butterflies and use my promo code Dr. Kelly for free shipping. That's DRKELLY for free shipping. Also, check out the link in the description for the podcast. In this current society where you're expected to do it all, hold it all together, show up with perfection and a smile on your face, it's no wonder that behind closed doors, there's this inner struggle. This feeling of exhaustion, this feeling of suffocating in the life that you're trying to keep going. And burnout doesn't let us know with a gentle knock that it's here. It comes plowing through the door when it's too late and it's already set in. And that is why I'm so honored to have Dr. Zarya Rubin on the podcast today. She is a Harvard-educated functional physician, TEDx speaker, and burnout expert. She helps high-achieving women in midlife break free from burnout to reclaim their passion, purpose, and joy. Combining expertise in neurology, functional medicine, mindfulness, and nervous system healing, she creates a multidisciplinary approach to breaking the burnout cycle. She is also the host of the brand new podcast, Outsmart Burnout. I love this conversation with her. There are so many things that resonate with me, and I'm sure will very much resonate with you. She shares the subtle signs of how burnout comes into our lives and how we can reclaim our peace and start to live a more fulfilling life. All right. Welcome, Dr. Zarya Rubin. I'm so honored to have you on the podcast, and I can't wait to get into everything we're going to talk about today.
Well, I'm so happy to be here, Kelly. Thanks for inviting me.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we connected on your podcast, and there's so much that came out of it. And just this is going to be just another continuation onto an awesome conversation. That's something that we can all relate to is burnout. And I know that's what you talk about, what you've lived. And I would love to just start there because it's something that so many of us have experienced, or maybe are experiencing some of the symptoms, or we're not aware that it's actually burnout. Can you talk about your story and how it showed up in your life?
Sure. Yeah. So I love that intro, and I think that you already touched on a very important point, is that I think so many of us are struggling with burnout and almost none of us realize it.
Mhm.
So I have yet to find a person who said to me, I was going through all of these things and I knew I was burned out. That's never how the story goes. The
Yep.
story goes, I had no idea I was burnt out. I just thought this was normal, or I just kept going until XYZ, until something happened, until a major medical issue popped
Mhm.
up, or until a major sort of event woke
Mhm.
me up. And that's basically the story that I keep hearing, and that's my story as well. So I think if you had asked me, because I my first burnout was in 2007. So if you had, or 2006 actually. So if you had asked me then if I was burnt out, I would have said no.
Mhm.
I'm just really stressed and I'm working really hard, and I'm just, this is what adulting feels like. So I was, quote unquote, living the dream. So from the outside looking in, my life was incredible. Like, I was finishing all of my medical training. I had gone through 4 years of pre-med, 4 years of med school, 5 years of residency, 2 years of fellowship. I had worked a little bit as a neurologist. So I was finishing my fellowship at Columbia in New York City. I was working at this top hospital, living in New York. I mean, everyone thought I was living the Sex and the City life, but really I had a very tiny apartment and much, fewer shoes, but it was like every day I would wake up and it would feel awful. I was so exhausted. I was just bone tired. And yes, medicine is an exhausting and punishing and unforgiving kind of career, but it was beyond that. And I didn't feel like I could keep doing it. I sort of thought to myself, how can I keep doing this for another 30, 40 years? I can't even do it for another day.
Yeah.
And my mental health was really kind of hanging in the balance. I was probably binge drinking a little more than I should have been on the weekends. Every morning when I would go to work, I would have to take the subway and I would jokingly stand on the platform and say to myself, should I get on it or jump in front of it?
Mm-hmm.
And that's pretty serious, but I ignored all the warning signs. I ignored, like, my heart was always racing. I was always anxious. I was having terrible sleep, nightmares all the time. And just kept going. I just thought, I guess this is what my life is going to be like. And
Mm-hmm.
I accepted it. I was resigned because the alternative was sort of unthinkable. Like, what am I going to do? Quit medicine? Nobody quits their dream.
Mm-hmm.
And I had done so much training. It was the fallacy of like sunk costs. But I've come so far. I can't just ditch it. And then, of course, the financial aspect. I was in incredible amounts of debt. And I thought, what can I do? I can't do anything differently. And so I kept going. And then one night I got my wake up call, which was literally in the form of a phone call. And my best friend from medical school was calling me to say that her husband had been playing frisbee, collapsed, and they rushed him to the hospital. And I said, but he's okay, right? And she said, no, they tried to resuscitate him, but he didn't make it.
Oh my gosh. Mm.
And that the world kind of stopped at that point, and I almost dropped the phone and had this crushing sense of, grief and just shock at this news. And what ended up happening was after I sort of came out of that and, helped my friend and was grieving, and it was a real wake-up call for me in terms of, oh my gosh, I cannot keep living my life like this. Like, I have to change something, because if this is it, if this is all there is, it can't be this.
Yeah.
And so it was a very, very difficult decision, but it was the only decision that I could make, which was to walk away from
Mhm.
my medical career. And so I left. And the only way I got through it was I came across this Turkish proverb that said, no matter how far you've gone down the wrong road, turn back.
Mm.
And
Mhm.
that's what allowed me to leave. But I'm not gonna lie and say that it was easy to do that. It was very difficult because it's all wrapped up in identity. Because I think that for a lot of us, like, our work is more than just a job. It's,
Mhm.
who am I if I'm not a doctor? So I had to begin that process of figuring that out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. Thank you so much for
Yeah.
sharing. It's something that, we all have maybe a different version of that, but can so
Yeah.
relate to what you were experiencing and the complexity of it and that depth of do I or don't I, and what does my future look like if I
Yeah.
stay? What does my future look like if I don't stay? And each one can feel scary in its own right.
I was like, you know what? I have to jump off the cliff, and hopefully there's a parachute somewhere. I
Mhm.
don't know that there will be, but there's no other option. It felt like, it was like being chased by
Yeah.
lions. There's a cliff, and you're like, okay, well, here
Are
we
you
go.
right? Absolutely. In that decision, how much guidance did you seek inwardly versus like externally? Like, did you seek out guidance outside yourself of like what the right decision is, or was it really just like a personal endeavor?
It was. I had to speak to the people in my training program, and my program director was fortunately an incredible man who was very supportive of
Mhm.
my decision, actually, because I was really torn apart by it. And of course, family and friends, and I did seek some professional help, but they weren't that helpful. I think that they couldn't wrap their head around what I was doing. And so eventually I just had to make the decision for myself. It was one of those decisions where it wasn't a decision. Like it was taken out of my hands of life became so surreal at that point that I was pretty much single-minded and single focused that this was the only thing I could do. There was no other option. And I haven't really looked back or regretted it. And
Mhm.
it's been almost, 20 years.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, that moment after you made that decision, what did your life look like at that moment? When you made the decision, you jumped off the cliff, you're there. What does that look like and feel like? Was there clarity? Was there relief? Or was there like anxiety?
Oh, I mean, all of the things. It was really interesting. So I sometimes instinctively, I'm a very rational, logical, scientific person.
Mhm.
And yet, I think I'm actually more of an emotional, right-brained, intuitive person when it really comes down to it. I really trained that left brain really hard in school and everything. But I oftentimes will just get these messages or these instincts of I need to do X.
Mhm.
So I started tango dancing.
Yeah.
And I know that sounds insane. One day when I read a book, I'll talk about the tango dancing and how it kind of saved my life because I was in such a state of numb, cut off from my emotions. It was too painful to really experience this intense, burnout and intense panic that I was feeling at work all the time
Mhm.
that I had cut myself off from basically feeling anything.
Mhm.
And so I started tango dancing. And at first I was really terrible at it. And then I got really good at it. And then I ended up going to Argentina to dance.
Oh,
And
cool.
it's like this very intense emotional connection that you have with a stranger for the few minutes that you're dancing. And it's very intense, it's very intimate, it's very emotional and passionate. And I was like, oh. I can actually still feel these things. These
Mhm.
things are still here. And
Mhm.
wow, I didn't know what it was like to actually experience that. So it really had to be this awakening of, oh my gosh, like I am human. I do have all of these feelings. I do have all of these intense emotions. I need to go through them. I need to process them. It wasn't for another maybe 10 years or so, almost 15 years that I was actually diagnosed with complex PTSD. And
Mhm.
I didn't know it at the time. If I had known it at the time, things might have been different. It stemmed from a lot of childhood trauma and childhood medical trauma. So
Mhm.
that was tied into, I jokingly say in my TED Talk, trauma is not really a great foundation for making a career choice. So I don't recommend it. But that
Mhm.
was kind of what I did. And
Yeah.
then unknowingly, unwittingly, I was sort of re-exposing myself to that trauma every single day
Mhm.
being a doctor. And no
Oh.
wonder it didn't work for me, and no wonder I kind of fell apart and eventually I had to walk away from it.
Mhm. And that's why it can be so sneaky because you're literally reliving the patterns, but so subconsciously you don't realize that it's the same thing that's replaying in your life, but you're just finding different scenarios to fill that void. And you're not
Yeah,
doing this consciously. You're not inviting this into your life, but you find
of
yourself in the same
course.
scenarios over and over and over again until you have that wake up call. And just as you were speaking, a quote that came into my mind, I don't forget who said it, but it says, "You're not exhausted because you're doing too much. You're exhausted because you're not doing enough of what you love." And
Mm,
when you talk about the tango
yes.
dancing and like drawing into things that are giving you life, breathing life into you, that is like the true essence of life. Like we're not meant to just go through the motions in life, we're supposed to experience it. So I just love that you invited that into your life.
Yeah, I think that it was a combination of the trauma and also, I came from a family of creatives and artists and, my mother and my sister, they're both actors and
Mhm.
writers and I watched my mom struggle uh in life and we didn't have much and there was every day was a struggle and I vowed as a young child I'm not going to do this. I'm going to pick a really dependable, secure career that I where I won't have to be constantly worried about money and panicked about
Mhm.
money. However, I was disregarding the fact that I'm actually a creative person. I'm
Mhm.
not a scientific person. I mean,
Yeah.
I've become one, and that part of my brain, like I said, it's definitely there. I love solving problems. I love helping people. I love doing that creatively, but I also have a creative side. I mean, I'm an opera singer. I've done dance. I recently actually took up watercolor painting, which was
Oh, cool.
really fun and
Yeah.
highly therapeutic. I highly recommend it to
Really
folks
cool.
because you really can't, we talk about our current, technologically obsessed
Mhm.
world and state and how we are so fried. Our brains are so fried and we're multitasking all the time. And that in and of itself can be a background sort of
Mhm.
low level burnout. I mean, never mind what we're seeing on our phones, but
Mhm.
just that act of being so disconnected and so distracted and so bombarded with stimuli from
Mhm.
all sides that when you're doing a single focused task, like painting or like something creative, you literally can't, I mean, you can't be on your phone and
Mhm.
watercolor. I mean, you could,
Yeah.
but it'd be really bad.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I love these sort of actions and these activities that really allow us that space to single task. And I
Mhm.
think that we need to do more of that. And the more you do it, the more you're able to exercise that part of your brain that has been kind of dormant and flaccid because we
Mhm.
are not working on that focus and that creativity and that
Mhm.
breathing room for our mind and our soul to really kind of
Yeah.
exist.
You're so right. And it's like, our environment and everything has advanced so far and so quickly, but we have not advanced that quickly. And so
Well,
it's a
yes, that's what
huge
people
gap.
people don't realize that the human genome, like it doesn't
Mhm.
evolve over decades, it
No.
evolves over millennia. And
Yes.
so we're still like kind of primitive cave people on a
Exactly.
biological basis. But
Yes.
I mean, we're living in this
Mhm.
technological world that is advancing day by leaps and bounds, and
Yeah.
brains are not necessarily ready for it. And
Mhm.
and AI is here now, so we'll see what that brings. It's
Exactly.
kind of terrifying, kind of awesome, but
Yes.
we'll see.
Absolutely. I would
Yeah.
love for you to dive into that a little bit more because for someone like who's very much relating to your story, that like high achiever, go-getter, grinding, how did you get to a place where it was like go, 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 go to a place where you could be more mindful and have those single tasks to really focus on? Can you talk about that evolution? Because that can be really challenging for somebody to get into that space.
So challenging. And I think
Mhm.
that I was one of those people that, when I quote unquote took a break from medicine, when I left medicine, oh, I'm gonna have this like relaxed life and maybe I'll live in the country. No, I remained in New York City because I love New York City, but New York City, talk about sensory overload and bombardment and
Totally.
multitasking. And then I ended up going to work at a startup,
Hmm.
a tech startup, a health technology startup. And so I
Hmm.
was working crazy hours, pretty similar hours to medicine. I was really happy that I was leaving work at 11 o'clock at night and not being there overnight. So I thought this was great. I was like, this is the life. But I just did keep grinding and I
Yeah.
did keep pushing myself because it actually felt familiar. It
Hmm.
felt comfortable. And I think on some level, physiologically, I was addicted to stress and to
Hmm.
high cortisol levels. And so I sought them out and I kept going and I kept going and I kept going. And that persisted for a while. It actually didn't really change until I had a baby.
Hmm.
And because then after that, I ended up working at a pharmaceutical company and worked in industry for many years and became an executive and was, working crazy hours and traveling and all of these things. And, the business world has definitely got its
Yeah.
quirks and cutthroat moments. And so I was really in a very stressful environment. And so I kept putting myself from stressful environment to stressful environment,
Hmm.
to stressful environment, had a baby, everything kind of the wheels fell off, uh,
Hmm.
had all kinds of postpartum issues, ended up with autoimmune disease.
Mm.
And that was another huge wake up call of like, okay, whatever I'm doing is not working
Yeah.
anymore. It
Mhm.
worked for a while. I pushed myself incredibly hard in my teens and my 20s. And did it work then? I mean, no,
Mhm.
my mental health was in the toilet, but physically I got through it. But
Yeah.
I couldn't understand. I was so healthy and I was eating all the kale and doing all the exercise and doing all these things. And then I realized that it was the stress that was killing me
Mhm.
and
Yeah.
that was triggering all of these things. And so I had to drastically change my life. I
Mhm.
had to take a step back. I started meditating.
Mhm.
I had always avoided meditation because I used to say, "Oh, I'm too stressed to meditate."
That's
So, ironically, I kind of forced myself to do it. It was one of those intuitive things where I know this is what I need because it's the
Mhm.
opposite of what I want.
Mhm. Yeah.
And so I started meditating. This was back in 2018.
Mhm.
And I have literally, I can show you my Headspace stats, which my husband makes
Mhm.
fun of me for because he's like, you're literally gamifying meditation and like a competition to you. Like that's the word, that's like the antithesis of meditation. But I have meditated every single day since 20.
Amazing. Wow.
I have not missed a day. It just became part of my life, and
Mhm.
I do it at least once a day, if not multiple times a day. It's
Yeah.
super easy. I know folks sometimes find meditation daunting or intimidating. They think of like a Buddhist monk sitting on a cushion in silence for
Mhm.
an hour. It doesn't have to be like that. And it can
Yeah.
really be as simple as I think when I started, I was doing a minute,
Mhm.
between 1 and 3 minutes a day.
Yeah.
And I love Headspace because it has all of these guided
Mhm.
meditations, so that someone is talking you through it.
Mhm.
And he's really wonderful. This guy Andy, who used to be a monk,
Mhm.
he's like talks you through it, and so you can really start small and you can build incrementally on that. And it really helps you to focus on your breathing. It
Mhm.
helps you to release, your thoughts and all the intense control that we exert sometimes on our thoughts or our worries and just let them go. They often use the analogy of a blue sky
Mhm.
and that clouds will come and go. And don't get hung up focusing on this one particular cloud and obsessing over it because it's going to pass. And then another
Mhm.
cloud will come and they will come and go and come and go. And the blue sky will always be there.
Mhm.
And I think that's a great metaphor for,
Mhm.
life. And so, yeah, I think that definitely making some intentional choices and changing my life and living really differently was not easy. I mean, I'm definitely a type A, overachiever, perfectionist kind of person, eldest daughter, all of those things. But I really had to drastically change my life because I had no choice. My body gave me no choice. And then after that diagnosis, I ended up having a lot of mental health issues and eventually had a crisis and turned out to be diagnosed with a complex PTSD. And that was the year before the pandemic. It was
Oh
a
my
few
gosh.
months before the pandemic,
Mhm.
actually. So
Wow.
bizarrely, by the time the pandemic came around, I was pretty good.
Yeah.
Calm, I was meditating, and
Yeah.
everything was under control and addressed, and I was like,
Mhm.
okay, I can handle this now.
Yeah.
Whereas I think if it had happened a few years before, it would have been a really,
Mhm.
really much more traumatic than it already was, for
Yeah.
all of us, because we did all go through
Absolutely.
a collective trauma from that we're still
Absolutely.
coming out of. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It's still impacting people today for sure. And, so appreciate you
our
sharing
kids.
that because when you have the resources and the tools, even if the external world is crazy, you can come back home to yourself and be able to regulate yourself. But when you don't have those tools, even the smallest things can throw you off. And especially when you're going through big things, it's
Yeah.
really catastrophic when you are experiencing that without any resources to help yourself.
Yeah. So I
So,
really try to resource
mhm.
people and I have this toolkit. And,
Mhm.
so breathing is another one of the really simple things that we can do.
Mhm.
And, breathing is an automatic function. We don't think about it. We
Mhm.
breathe without, conscious control. But the cool thing about breathing is that you can also consciously control it.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
there's these two ways of thinking about breathing. And when you consciously approach breath, and
Mhm.
try to slow things down and breathe deeply or breathe in specific patterns, we are activating that parasympathetic nervous system, which
Mhm.
slows things down because when we're in that constant sympathetic overdrive of fight or flight or freeze or fawn or those intense levels that we're not meant to live at, We
Mhm.
really need to switch over to the other half of our nervous system, which is the rest, digest, calm
Yeah.
off, and that allows us to do that. So meditation,
Mhm.
breathing, going for a gentle walk, like being in
Mhm.
nature, different things that can help calm you down, certain types of music, vibration. There's lots of different tools that we can incorporate such that we are not always in this heightened state. And then when you get to a crisis or you get to an event and you don't have those tools or those resources or that resilience, then it really can throw you off. And if you do, you can, maybe handle it a little bit better.
Absolutely. It just gives you that bigger buffer system of when things do happen, which will inevitably happen because it's life, that you can buffer it better without
Yeah.
having these big peaks and valleys that you have to dig out
We're going to have ups and downs.
of.
I have a middle schooler. We
Yeah.
have drama going on. And
hmm
I think ordinarily this drama would have really thrown me off and I would have gone into a
Yeah.
spiral and panic
hmm
attacks and things. And now I'm like, it's okay. We're going to get
hmm
through it. It's,
Yep.
teenage stuff, preteen stuff. She's
hmm
only 11, but we're
Yeah.
already dealing with the tween teen stuff. And so,
Yeah.
but you gotta breathe through it and you have to model that calm
hmm
for your kids because they see us very
hmm
heightened and freaking out, and that makes them feel unstable, or they learn that's how they're supposed to react.
Right.
So I
Absolutely.
think it's really good to model that for our kids too.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. And Milet talks about that. Most things are caught, not taught. And so you can teach your kids all the right things, but they're going to catch how you are actually behaving, the self-care that you're doing, the integration of those
Mhm.
skills. They're going to see that and model that. So it's so powerful because I think this is a big sticking point, especially for moms, where you have that guilt of like, I don't have time to take care of myself. I have to take care of the kids,
Mhm.
but you truly are taking care of your children when you are taking care of yourself. It's so powerful.
Yeah, if we could really teach moms one thing is that if you don't take care of yourself first, you will
Mhm.
not be able to take care of anyone else. And I
Exactly.
mean, yes, there are moments and there are seasons when you have a
Yeah.
newborn and okay, you're not necessarily going to be taking care of
Yeah.
yourself that much, but I mean, you still have to. You still have to
Mhm.
get sleep. You have to get, food and water. You can't. I mean,
Mhm.
I would just go days without real, taking a break ever. And
Mhm.
when I finally ended up taking a break in 2018, when I started meditating, I went on a retreat. I went on a yoga retreat. I realized I hadn't left my kid, and she was 5. I
Mhm.
had not left for one day
Wow.
with a
Yeah.
5-year-old, and I was like, no wonder I'm burned out. So I
Mhm.
definitely burned
Yeah.
out again in motherhood um,
Mhm.
by overdoing it and overgiving and that's when I
Yeah.
developed autoimmune disease, and I was like, okay, something has to shift,
Mhm.
something has to change because I can't keep pouring from an empty cup and
Yeah.
living in
Absolutely.
overdrive.
Absolutely. One thing I,
It's not good for my kid.
what was that? Oh,
No, it's
sorry.
just not good for me. It's not good for my
Oh,
kid.
absolutely. No way. Yeah, 100%. And one thing I want to go into because we talked about like how it's so subtle, you don't even realize you're burning out until you do hit those walls and those big health things. In
Yeah.
hindsight, looking back, what were some of the signs that you might have missed during the journey that now you see, oh, that was a sign of burnout for
Yeah.
maybe
Yeah.
somebody who's in the middle of it?
So there are 3 classic hallmarks that make up the definition, the pillars of burnout. And this was, based on research and the coining of the term in the 1970s by Dr. Herbert Freudenberger and Dr. Christina Maslow. So number one is exhaustion.
Mhm.
And so I think it's often very hard for us to separate what is sort of normal exhaustion and what is burnout exhaustion. And now,
Mhm.
obviously when you're working in medicine and you're doing night shifts and you're doing overnight, you're working for 30, it's changed. When
Mhm.
I was in medicine, we would still do like 36-hour shifts, and
Oh my
it's
gosh.
so no wonder you're exhausted. So you
Yeah.
sort of rationalize it and you justify it. And same with motherhood. If you're up all night with a newborn for months and months and months and months, you're going to be exhausted.
Mhm.
But this is sort of different. It's like a bone tiredness, an inability to get out of bed.
Mhm.
Rest doesn't necessarily help. So it's not something that, well, if I just take a break this weekend or get a better night's sleep, or, oh, I'm going to go on vacation and it's
Mhm.
going to help. And so I think I would take these vacations to try to restore and recharge and kind of escape from my life.
Mhm.
And I would be so exhausted when I was coming back, and I would really dread coming back. Like I didn't feel refreshed. I wasn't ready. I was like, I'm not ready. I can't go back. I can't do it
Yeah.
again. So I think that profound exhaustion is number one. Number two is a tricky one that I think a lot of us ignore, and it's hard to wrap your mind around it sometimes, and that is cynicism
Mm,
as it relates to your job or to your caregiving. And
mm,
you can develop something called compassion fatigue,
mhm,
where you're actually no longer able to feel compassion about the people you're supposed to be taking care of. And it's mostly healthcare workers that this happens to, but also, people in other professions like army or police or certainly teachers. A lot of people fall prey to this. And so I should have noticed that. I
mhm,
didn't.
yeah.
I was very cynical about everything, and you start to lose hope and lose trust in the organizations that you work with. Maybe your values no longer feel aligned. And
Mhm,
you also kind of self-isolate because your peers, maybe you don't feel that they're on the same page. And I sort of looked around and I thought, everyone else seems to really be enjoying this. How? How are they
mhm,
enjoying this? Like this is literally, it feels like torture in some ways. But I just kept justifying and ignoring and moving on. And then lastly is decreased productivity
mhm,
and decreased concentration, inability to focus. You're getting your work done, but you're kind of phoning it in. And it's sort of the quiet
mhm.
quitting
Yeah.
phenomenon that we see a lot nowadays. And
Mm,
yeah, I was still doing my work, but I was really dragging my feet and just didn't feel like I could concentrate or focus and had no desire to. And then you feel a lot of shame, a lot of guilt
mm,
around that. And so you don't
yeah.
tell anyone and you
Mhm,
just try to go through the motions, but it's like going through quicksand every day.
mhm,
And so all the warning signs were there and the physical things too, like really terrible sleep, lots of nightmares, lots of heart palpitations all the time,
mm,
and lots of holding your breath,
mhm.
not actually breathing deeply. I
Yeah.
mean, yeah, all the signs were there. Yeah,
Mhm,
and then seeking comfort in things that are not necessarily good for you. So spending
mhm,
too much time on social media, binging Netflix for days and days on end,
mhm,
in those days we didn't have that, but
mhm,
or substances,
mhm.
alcohol, drugs.
Yeah.
Those are really big warning signs that
Thank you
you
so much for sharing those. That's so helpful for anyone who's like maybe in the thick of it. Like, okay, yeah, I feel that. I feel that. Like, it's so
yeah.
relatable. I mean, there's plenty of moments in my life I was like, oh, I was definitely there, 100%.
Yeah, and I feel like if you get to the point where you're even suspecting that you might be burned out,
Yeah,
you're burned
definitely
out.
are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
For
I
that
tell
person.
people, don't ignore that check engine light.
Yeah. Oh,
That check
totally.
engine light comes on,
Hmm.
pay attention. Pay
Yeah.
attention to your body. It's sending
Hmm.
you signals. It will take over. Like if you do
Hmm.
not rest, your body will force you to rest at some point.
Exactly. I always equate to that toddler as like mommy, mommy, and if you ignore it long enough, it starts screaming and it will scream at you eventually.
Or you turn around and it's quiet, but the walls have been
Mhm.
painted with
Yeah.
permanent
Yes.
marker.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Something will happen. It's all at
Something will happen. Something
yeah.
will give. Yeah.
Yeah. For that person who's listening, they're like, "Yep, I am burned out. I know I need a change," but maybe they're like, financially, I can't make a change. They're telling themselves, I can't make a change financially or time-wise, or I don't have, there's all these
Yeah.
real life reasons why they feel like they are just literally trapped in this space.
Yes.
What's a step
Yes.
they could take?
So yeah, that's a great question. And I think for a lot of us, we do get caught up in this spiral of I
Mhm.
can't, I can't. There's I cannot change my life. There's
Mhm.
nothing I can do differently. I said to myself, I can't.
Mhm.
I can't leave medicine. I can't.
Yeah.
There's no way.
Mhm.
Now, I am not suggesting that what I did is necessarily the way everyone should go. You don't necessarily have to like toss a grenade into your life or jump
Mhm.
off a cliff. But what I do talk about is my mantra that I teach everyone that is so simple and so direct. It's not necessarily easy to achieve, but it is do one thing less.
Mhm.
And, do one thing less. It's very basic, but it can be very powerful.
Mhm.
We are always trying to cram in more into our lives, whether that's running around and doing a million things, whether it's squeezing in one more patient or one more meeting or one more school activity for the kids. It's like more, more, more.
Mhm.
And that in and of itself can contribute to burnout. And if we are able to just start removing things from our plate one at a time,
Mhm.
then perhaps that will give us a little bit more breathing room,
Mhm.
time to reevaluate, time to say like, hey, is it really my job or is it other things? If it's my job, can I change roles? Can I change responsibilities? Can I speak to HR? Can I speak to my supervisor? Can I find out what resources are available through my workplace? Because sometimes there are, and we just don't know about them.
Mhm.
Can I switch departments or do I need to change jobs altogether? Do I need to change companies? Maybe my job and my career is actually a good fit, but this particular company, I don't like the way they do things and I don't agree with their values, but I still want to be, an engineer or something. So you just need to give yourself that breathing room to figure things out, maybe possibly see a counselor, see a career counselor, work with a coach, work with somebody who can help put the pieces together and but just give yourself that space. So I say like, it's like you're running around and doing errands and can you cross one off your list? Do you really need to do those all of those? Do you need to be in all of those meetings back to back every day? Can you cross a meeting off, delete, delay, delegate?
Mhm.
It really works. And people say, oh, but you're going to be doing less, so you're going to be less productive and it's not going to be good. Well, the analogy that I often use is like, let's say you're clearing the table after a big dinner party and you've got all these plates and things and piled up, and then you notice there's one cup that's still left on the table. And what are you going to do? You're going to try to go back and get that cup and put it on, right?
Mhm.
And what's going to happen? All the dishes are going to crash to the
Mhm.
floor. And then
Yeah.
you're going to be spending all of this extra time sweeping up broken glass,
Mhm.
cleaning the floor, ordering new dishes. I mean, it's going to
Mhm.
create so much more work. But if you had just left it on the table, if you had gone to the sink and then gone back, made a little short second trip, just
Mhm.
it would have saved you so much. And I think that's sort of the principle and the concept. It's about prioritizing, being intentional, what is really important and critical, what matters, and what's really contributing to outcomes or efficacy or success, and what is just extra work that we're piling on ourselves.
Yeah, it's a really great tip and just so useful because it's so actionable. It's just that one thing. It doesn't feel like you have to
Yeah,
overhaul your whole life. It's
it's
just that one
doable. It's
thing. It gives
doable.
you
And
a
if you
foothold.
start there and you
Hmm.
see what that feels like, you're like, oh,
Yeah.
this feels good.
Mhm.
Tomorrow I'm going to do two things less. And,
Yes.
just
Right.
find that balance, figure out
Hmm.
what that tipping point is where you are doing the things you need to do and what needs to get done, but you are still prioritizing your physical and mental health
Hmm.
and allowing yourself that space to
Yeah.
breathe and to exist as a human being, not a human
Mhm.
doing.
Exactly. Yeah, which can it's such a trap so many of us get into. We just get into this busyness and then it's like January becomes June and then it becomes the next year and the next year and you look back and you're like, where have I been? I haven't even lived. It's
Right. And when
easy.
people say, "Oh, how are you?" "Oh, busy." Like I'm really, really busy.
Right. Like it's an honor. Like,
It's a badge of honor.
yeah.
And we're just, oh, it's like hustle and busy and
Yeah.
so busy. And so I stopped saying that. I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, things are good. We're getting
Hmm.
through it. I mean, well, nowadays I don't say things are good. I say, oh, I'm getting through,
Yeah.
each
Yep.
day. And,
Yeah. It's
but
so
it's not
important to have
always
that
easy.
authenticity. Yeah. Like
Yeah.
we're all going
And I
through
have to
something.
like put limits on my calendar. I
Yeah.
can't do back to back to back,
Hmm. Yeah.
patients or interviews all day long. It's too much. You need a little bit of a break.
Yeah, absolutely. One thing I would go into like a little deeper because I know you talked about a lot of these patterns were like stemmed from your childhood.
Yes.
How did you navigate like understanding your belief system and then rewriting some of those beliefs that maybe you held on
Oh
to?
boy, how much time do we
I
have?
know it's a that's a question.
So
Yeah.
I of course did a lot of therapy
Hmm.
and a lot of talk therapy as well as somatic resourcing and trauma therapy. And so
Yeah.
I highly, highly recommend if folks are dealing with complex trauma or PTSD, please seek out a trauma therapist
Mm-hmm.
because a regular therapist, it's not enough.
Hmm.
And then I also engaged in a technique that was I had never heard of. I didn't know whether it was going to work or it wasn't. I was very skeptical, but it's called neurofeedback.
Hmm.
And it was a really interesting technology where they place electrodes on your brain. It's non-invasive on your scalp, not
Hmm.
on your brain.
Yep.
And you listen to this bizarre music and they monitor your brain waves, kind of like like a minimal form of an EEG.
Mhm.
And they look for patterns in your brain waves that indicate, stress or anxiety or, dysfunctional patterns. And they interrupt those patterns by playing this music and putting these subliminal audio clicks that interrupt the flow of the brain waves. And as a neurologist, I was like, come on, is this for real? And I absolutely swear by this technique and I loved it. And it helped me so much. It helped me with the flashbacks, with panic, with overall just nervous system elevation and trauma. And so I highly recommend neurofeedback for folks. And then, of
Amazing.
course, meditation.
Hmm. Yeah, amazing. I love that. I always like, you never know what tool's gonna click with you. So I appreciate you just sharing a lot of different examples, and it's like being open to seeing
Yes, being
how,
open to new technology. There's
yeah.
EMDR is another good one. I didn't do that one.
Hmm.
And there's some great books out there. I mean,
Hmm.
obviously, the one that's most well known that is phenomenal is The Body Keeps the Score.
Hmm.
That's written by a psychiatrist, Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. It's amazing, amazing book that talks all about trauma. What My Bones Know by Stephanie Fu.
Hmm.
So that's a memoir about trauma that is very hard to read. She talks about her childhood abuse and but it is so well done and so well written and she offers so many insights and then she talks about her healing journey in the second half of the book and how she overcame all of this and it's very inspiring. So I highly recommend that one. And then lastly, someone that I interviewed on my podcast recently, Brittany Piper, Body First Healing. And that is an incredible book that talks about all the somatic work that we
Hmm.
can do to heal trauma. It doesn't necessarily have to involve the cognitive talk therapy or the reliving and retelling that a lot of trauma and memory things are stored in the physical, in the body. And we can do things to release that, to retrain our nervous system and to heal without necessarily reactivating and reopening the trauma by retelling it over and over. So it's really fascinating. And her story is incredible too. So I highly recommend some of
Hmm.
those resources.
Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. It's so powerful, the body. It literally is like our greatest advocate. And a lot of times when we have any kind of health issue, if we, look down on our body and think it's our enemy, but really it's really trying to advocate for us and help us and really understand what's going on below the surface. So
Oh, it's always sending you a
powerful.
message. It's sending you an
Yeah.
SOS. I was like,
Hmm.
why are things breaking? Why is my body
Yeah.
betraying me? But it
Right.
was loudly
Mhm.
screaming, like, you need to stop. You need to
Mhm.
slow down.
Yeah.
This is not sustainable.
Yeah, it's so powerful when we start listening to it and recognizing those signs before hopefully we get, before we get to something where it is catastrophic and you have no other
Yeah.
choice. So it's so powerful. And I hope that this plants the seed to anyone who's maybe experiencing some of the signs and symptoms that you shared to really understand maybe what's going on below the surface and take some action to
Well,
change.
yeah, I mean, there are legitimate physiologic concerns that may need to be addressed. I mean, yes, a lot of burnout is psychological and emotional, but there can be physiological
Mhm.
components. There can be thyroid disease, there can be adrenal dysfunction, there can be anemia, there can be all kinds of contributors to fatigue, mitochondrial dysfunction, can have an imbalance in hormones.
Mhm.
So there's so many factors that play into it, which is why I kind of love to merge functional medicine with all of my burnout work and try to figure out, what is physical, what is mental, how do they intersect, and what can we do to interrupt or rebalance, patterns. It's microbiome is a huge factor and a component of we're learning mental health. So when things are out of balance, when things are off, when things are not optimal from a functional medicine perspective, you can actually address those things. And that is it's a feed forward or it's a a vicious circle of what is contributing to what is physical, what is mental, and how do they feed each other and intersect. And so
Yeah.
by interrupting some of those patterns and loops and dynamics, we can have impact on all things.
Yeah. And I think it's so crucial when you have the integration of the mind and the body. You can't separate the two. There's not
Yes,
one part that you can address and leave out the other. Everything's
exactly.
interconnected. So
Exactly.
it's absolutely essential to understand the whole picture and have that holistic approach to it.
I mean,
And
it's as simple as by doing breathing techniques, by doing meditation. I mean, I can literally watch my heart rate go do 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 do
Mhm.
do do,
Yeah.
and blood pressure, like everything just go
Mhm.
way down. And if you can do that in a few seconds, you can imagine the impact of the mind-body connection on
Mhm.
your overall health and well-being.
Yeah, absolutely. And for somebody who want to connect with you, dive into it deeper, how can they find you?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you can head over to my website, which is www.drzarya, that's DRZARYA.com. Please come hang out with me on Instagram. That's where I spend most of my time, and on there you can check out the podcast, you can check out my freebie. So yes, it's at Dr. Zarya Rubin on Instagram. And yes, I do have a brand new podcast. It's called Outsmart Burnout.
Mhm.
And definitely come take a listen because I've interviewed a lot of the folks that I've mentioned and had some amazing conversations about ways that women can learn to develop resilience and put these tools and toolkits in our toolbox and really outsmart burnout before it takes hold.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll put everything in the show notes. So if you're
Yeah.
listening, definitely connected with Dr. Zaria. And I appreciate everything you shared today. There are so many things that I know will deeply resonate with someone who is in the thick of it right now and really understand that there's another way that they can live their life to the
Yes.
fullest.
And please do
Hmm.
not suffer in silence.
Hmm.
Please tell somebody, please reach out, talk to a friend, talk to someone at work, reach
Hmm.
out to me. Help is out there and you shouldn't have to go through it alone.
Yeah. And then hopefully after this conversation, you realize you're not alone. There's so many of us that
There's
experience
so many
this
of
to
us.
some
Yes.
extent. Yeah. So it's just may look different, but it's the same root
Yes, and
of it
I
all.
will also be launching a women's community,
Hmm.
a small membership community for working together on burnout and functional medicine aspects of burnout. And that's going to be launching in the fall. And so that's a place where we could come together and have some community and realize that, yeah, you're not alone and we're all going through this together. We'll work on stuff together, we'll troubleshoot, we'll have educational sessions and Q&A. And so that's another fun way for folks to get involved. Get that
Amazing.
support. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much. And again, for anyone who's listening, if there's something that stuck out to you, share this episode so that this can be spread to even more people. So thank you so much again. And I really appreciate everything you shared today.
Thank you, Kelly.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode. If there was something in this episode that really resonated with you or a message that stuck with you, please share it with someone else. It's only through sharing these messages that we can start to rewire our minds to feel empowered and live the life that we truly desire. Please subscribe so you never miss an episode. And again, thank you so much for tuning in to Rewiring Health.